5 teams have primetime games this year. No, 8 teams have 5 primetime games, or 8 teams have 8 primetime games. One of those is correct. 8 have 5. That's what it is. Cowboys, Packers, 49ers, Rams, Bucks, Chiefs, Ravens, and Patriots. And I can get behind that, right? The Rams didn't make the playoffs. The Cowboys didn't make the playoffs, but they have that national brand. The Bucks didn't make the playoffs, but they have Tom Brady. I can get behind that. I don't have a problem with those many teams having 5 primetime games. Any of those stand out to you as not belonging?
Well, the interesting one will be the Patriots. I mean, there'll be an interesting story no matter what because of Tom Brady leaving and what will Bill Belichick make of this team without Tom Brady. That will be fascinating to watch. But if Jarrett Stidham isn't the guy, that's gonna be tough later on in the season if we're watching a quarterback that is clearly not the guy playing games for the Patriots. But that would be the most fascinating question mark. I think all the other teams that you listed have either, are really, really good or have national prominence where you can't have an NFL schedule without at least a few Cowboys games on Sunday Night Football to make you feel like you're at home. That is the totem in Inception to remind you that we're still in the reality is that the Cowboys are playing on a Sunday Night Football game.
And this is what's fascinating about this phase of the Patriots' existence, because over the course of the last 20 years, they have dominated the National Football League. They have become a national brand. And the real question is this: do they have staying power on the national stage, even if they stink? Because the Cowboys, more often than not, over the past 25 years, have stunk. The Cowboys haven't been to the NFC Championship game since their last Super Bowl win, Super Bowl 30 against the Steelers in early 1996. But they still are the one team. If you ask a network, who do you want on your air more often than any other team, they're going to say the Cowboys. We want Cowboys games, night games, late afternoon, Thanksgiving, holidays, anytime, anywhere, Cowboys. Even though they have been mediocre at best, all things considered, the past quarter century. Will that happen? Now, first of all, the Patriots have to become mediocre, which may be a ridiculous proposition, but can the Patriots continue to stay in the upper echelon even if they are a 7-9, 6-10, 8-8 team? What do you think?
Well, I think for this year specifically, Bill Belichick is not going to have a bad team because I can't imagine Bill Belichick not having a team that will find a way to at least be relevant in the standings. So I think even if they're not at the upper echelon, if they're not one of the teams going for a bye, if they're not, 12 wins, 13 wins like they've been used to, I think the storyline of Bill Belichick trying to find a way to get into the playoffs with Jarrett Stidham will be fascinating and will be compelling television. And Bill Belichick in general is compelling television. So he and he alone will carry that torch in terms of primetime games. Now, what will happen when he retires? If that's 5, 10, 15 years, who knows? But for this season specifically, I think their story is very interesting and does deserve to be on primetime.
And here's what makes the point that I just made even more amazing. Because you're right. As long as Belichick is with the Patriots are going to be a compelling team. But Barry Switzer, Chan Gailey, Dave Campo, Bill Parcells, Wade Phillips, Jason Garrett. Those are the Cowboys coaches for the past 25 years. Other than Parcells, none of these guys is going to make us say, we better pay attention to the Cowboys. And the fact that they have had that staying power, what is it? Is it the silver helmet with the blue star? Is it the Joneses? I mean, this is the question I need to ask Steven today, and I will. And there's got to be a tactful way to put it. I mean, hey, Steven, why do you think your team continues to be so compelling when it's not very good? I mean, but that's the case. Is it Jerry Jones? Is that why?
Okay.
What is it?
I'll tell you, there's a few things. One's the stadium. I actually do think that matters. The stadium, the Cowboys stadium, does feel like a big primetime game stadium because we were used to it, even when it was the stadium before Jerry's World with, the opening in so that God can watch the Cowboys. It felt different in Dallas. Jerry Jones is absolutely part of that. And then I would throw in as a third point the teams in their division. The Eagles and the Giants and the Redskins are teams that have had history that, if the Cowboys are playing the Giants, those are two big markets. So I think when you add all that together, it keeps that relevancy even when they have been bad.
You make an excellent point there, and I'm reluctant to give you that kind of credit. I think back to the 70s. I think back to the 70s when I first discovered football. And and there are plenty of old games on YouTube from the 70s. And a lot of the NFL stadiums were crap holes, for lack of a better term. And you can see it when you watch the games. And there was something about Texas Stadium, and it may be just as simple as the lighting, but there was something about the way those games looked on TV. They jumped off the screen. Back in the days of the old, rear projection tube and whatever cathode ray tube and the big giant fake wood paneling and low def, there was something about the Cowboys games, the way they looked. I remember the first time I was ever in Dallas in 1994, and I was going from the airport to the hotel, and the vehicle passed by the stadium, and I saw it, and it's like, that's it? It looks like crap. I mean, you expect it to be palatial on the outside because those images from years and years of football when all the other teams had crappy stadiums, there was just something about it. And maybe that is the thing. It gave the Cowboys an intangible, indefinable, but very real quality where everything they did felt special. And it stayed that way for the past 40 years, even though the past 25 years has been not that much special.
And think about it this, Mike, to even go further on my fantastic point, 2-1 me, the NFL has had a lot of stadium turnover. You know what I mean? There's a lot of new stadiums. Why do some stadiums feel more special? Why does Lambeau and Soldier Field and Dallas Stadium, even though it's different than what they had, but it feels the same because it's Jerry's World and it's huge, it's enormous, and it's all these things. I think there's history in some of these stadiums, and that's a little bit more rare as opposed to maybe baseball or hockey or anywhere else. The history in the select stadiums of the NFL. I'm even thinking of like how much of a bummer it is to watch the 49ers play not a candlestick. Like, I'm still kind of not over that. So I think that these older stadiums, or the stadiums that feel like they have history, add an element to the broadcast that you can't really put your finger on.
But here's the other thing too. I had no idea that we would go down this rabbit hole, but I think it's a compelling conversation.
I'm a genius.
Even if it isn't,
I'm a genius.
But you know what? I was at Soldier Field last year for the first time ever, and I was in awe of Soldier Field. And it just occurred to me now, for whatever reason, and you may disagree with me, I don't think that same sense of awe when you're there comes across when the game is televised. Am I wrong?
Well, I think the aerial shots definitely play when it's by the lake. It maybe not. I think that's also the Bears are just bad. So that changes things. When that stadium
but it doesn't affect the Cowboys.
Yeah, I know. When that stadium is rocking, though, it does feel different than newer stadiums. There are just a lot. If you look around the NFL, I'm just doing it off the top of my head, how many stadiums out there? The Superdome's another great point. A Superdome game feels different. So maybe Soldier Field shouldn't even be in that conversation. I'm fine with that. I'll concede that because the Bears have been so bad. But there are certain stadiums that have history and meaning behind them, and games just feel bigger when they're played there.
And I'm telling you, the lighting has so much to do with it. You're right. The games at the Superdome, you can, like, there are certain stadiums where even if it wasn't the Saints playing, you can tell it's the Superdome. Just by the picture, the lighting, everything, you can tell instantly it's a Superdome. You can tell it's Cowboy Stadium. And you can tell it's Heinz Field, which really doesn't have the same history that Three Rivers Stadium had. But there are certain that that is obvious from the get-go where you are, and then others where it's like, I don't know what stadium that is, and that has something to do with it. By the way, you won't be seeing any shots of Ford Field in primetime this year. The Lions are the one team that has 0 primetime games. And Big Cat,
Thanksgiving.
It's not a primetime. It's early in the day. Every game Every game for the Lions this year is in that 1 o'clock Eastern time window, except for Thanksgiving, which I think starts a little earlier. I can't remember, but yeah, Lions get no night games. Okay, let me say I'll use that instead. No night games for the Detroit Lions in 2020.
Okay, but that is still considered a primetime game because it's a Thursday. It's something different. It's a quirk in the schedule. The Lions, another one. I wish
you have a weird definition of prime time. You have a two to two. I'm not going to let you have. I'm not going to concede that one. No. Prime time. Thursday morning is not prime time.
The Silverdome. Bring back the Silverdome. I know it still exists and it's barren and I think in disrepair. Maybe they actually just finally the last year or two finally blew it up. But that's another one where I wish they had figured out a way to have the Silverdome still exist because there's history there.
Now, yeah, I think it would have taken a lot to get the Silverdome back to a point where they could play games. It reminded me like one of the scenes of the original Jumanji movie where the jungle takes over the house. I mean, some of the images of the Silverdome were fascinating to look at, how that place just got overrun by nature through 10 years of not being used at all. So, all right, let's see what else we have here. Yes. Any other points on the primetime schedule you would like to make, Big Cat, before we take a break? I'm going to open it up schedule. To you.
Yeah, I love that every team still gets a primetime game. That's probably my favorite part of the NFL schedule, where you can make sure that your team does get at least one standalone game where it's like, hey, everyone's going to be watching you. And I think that that's the definition of primetime. So it's still 2-1 me.
All right, I still think it's 2-2. You cannot have a Thursday afternoon game in primetime. We started down this road last hour when you tried to say that Washington playing in the 4 o'clock Eastern slot on Thanksgiving counts as their primetime game. I reject that as well. So no primetime games for Washington, no primetime games for the Lions. And I don't know, coaches use everything they can to motivate their players. Is there any way, do you use that? Like they don't have any respect for us. They didn't put us in primetime. I bet that Matt Patricia and or Ron Rivera will find a way to get their guys fired up, that they think we're going to stink this year. Look, they didn't even bother to put us in primetime. Let's go out and prove to all of them that we're a primetime team or something.
Did you just ask if a head football coach uses the smallest slight in the entire world as motivation? Yeah, I think they do.
Yeah. And even slights that aren't slights, even if they have to make stuff up, they'll do it if it gets their guys properly motivated.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.